My family abandoned my grandmother after her stroke, but when she left me her house and will, they showed up with lawyers at her funeral. I, 28F, had been living with my grandmother Roberta, 82F, for the past 6 years, ever since she suffered a severe stroke that left her partially paralyzed on her right side. None of my other relatives wanted to step up. Not my Uncle Tom, 55M, who lived just 30 minutes away. Not my Aunt Sarah, 52F, who always bragged about her nursing degree but never used it to help. And definitely not my parents, who were too busy with their new families. Some background is needed here. My parents divorced when I was 8, and it wasn't an amicable split. My dad immediately moved in with his girlfriend, now wife, while my mom spent most of her time dating different men, trying to find herself or whatever. Neither of them had much time for a confused 8-year-old, so I ended up spending most of my time at Roberta's house. She was my mom's mother, but she never took sides in the divorce. Instead, she focused on giving me stability. Roberta was amazing during those years. She made sure I did my homework, cooked healthy meals, and always made time to listen to my problems. When I was bullied in middle school, she helped me build confidence. When I had my first heartbreak at 16, she sat up all night with me, eating ice cream and telling me about her own teenage years. Even after I went to college, I visited her every weekend. She was more than a grandmother. She was my best friend. The stroke happened right after I graduated college and started my teaching career. I got the call from her neighbor, Mrs. Johnson, who found Roberta collapsed in the garden. I was the first one at the hospital and stayed there for 3 days straight. Tom and Sarah showed up briefly, made some sympathetic noises, then disappeared. My parents sent flowers but were too busy to visit. The doctor said Roberta would need constant care. She had lost mobility in her right side, her speech was slurred, and she needed help with basic tasks. The hospital recommended a nursing home, but I couldn't bear the thought of Roberta, who had always been so independent, ending up in one of those places. Without really thinking it through, I told everyone I would move in with her. You should have heard the reactions. Tom said I was throwing my life away. Sarah lectured me about how I wasn't qualified to be a caregiver. My mom said I was being dramatic and should let professionals handle it. My dad didn't say anything, he just shook his head disapprovingly. The only person who supported my decision was Martin, 65M, Roberta's friend and lawyer for the past 30 years. He offered to help me with the legal and medical paperwork. I took a teaching job at a school near Roberta's house and arranged my schedule to be home when she needed me. The first few months were incredibly hard. I had to learn everything from scratch: how to help her bathe without falling, how to make sure she took the right medications at the right times, how to assist her with physical therapy exercises. There were nights when I barely slept because she was in pain or confused. But we developed a routine. My savings quickly disappeared into medical bills, equipment, and house modifications. We needed grab bars in the bathroom, a wheelchair ramp, and a special bed. Martin helped me apply for assistance programs, but there was still a lot to pay for. I asked Tom and Sarah if they could contribute, since they both earned good money, but they always had excuses. Tom was saving for his son's college, and Sarah had just bought a vacation home in Florida. The criticism from my family was constant. They said I was naive, that I was sacrificing my youth, that I should be dating or focusing on my career instead of playing nurse. Some of them even suggested I was after Roberta's money, which was ridiculous. Roberta lived comfortably, but wasn't wealthy. She had her modest house and some savings, but nothing that would make anyone rich. As time went on, most of the family stopped visiting altogether. Tom would show up every few months, stay for exactly 15 minutes, then leave with some excuse about a meeting. Sarah called occasionally, but never visited. She was always too busy with her yoga retreats or art classes. My parents were wrapped up in their new families and rarely called. The only regular visitor was Martin, who came by every week without fail. He would bring groceries, help me sort through medical bills, and just sit with Roberta, making her laugh with stories about their younger days. He taught me how to handle insurance companies and helped me set up a system for managing her medications. Things got harder last year when Roberta's health started declining more rapidly. She needed more care, so I had to reduce my teaching hours to part-time. This sparked another round of family drama. Tom actually called me stupid for cutting back on work. Sarah started telling everyone I was manipulating Roberta, trying to get written into her will. My mom posted passive-aggressive comments on Facebook about people who take advantage of the elderly. The situation exploded last month when Tom made a surprise visit. He found me helping Roberta sign some papers. They were just routine medical forms authorizing her monthly prescriptions. But Tom immediately assumed the worst. He started yelling about elder abuse, claiming I was trying to steal Roberta's money. Roberta tried to explain, but her speech issues made her hard to understand when she was upset, which only made Tom more suspicious. Now my phone is constantly buzzing with messages from relatives I haven't heard from in years. Some are demanding I move out and let them take care of Roberta. Where were they for 6 years? Others are threatening to report me for elder abuse. Tom is talking about getting power of attorney. Sarah is telling everyone I've brainwashed Roberta. The worst part is how this is affecting Roberta. She's upset about all the drama, which isn't good for her health. She keeps apologizing for causing problems in the family, but it's not her fault at all. She's the victim in all this, and watching my relatives attack me while pretending to care about her is making me angry. Martin says I should ignore them. They're just showing their true colors now. He's probably right, but it's hard when it's your own family attacking you. I'm not leaving Roberta. She needs me, and I'm the only one who knows her routine, her medications, everything. But the constant accusations and threats are wearing me down. Update: I wasn't planning to update so soon, but everything has changed in the past few days. Roberta passed away in her sleep 3 nights ago. She had been more tired than usual that day, but nothing seemed seriously wrong. We had dinner together, watched her favorite game show, and I helped her to bed. She squeezed my hand and told me she loved me, just like she did every night. That was the last thing she said to me. When I went to wake her for her morning medication, she was already gone. She looked peaceful, like she was just sleeping. I called Martin first, then the paramedics. By the time Tom and Sarah arrived, Martin was already there helping me handle everything. My parents didn't show up until the next day. The funeral was yesterday, and that's when everything went completely sideways. I was trying to keep it small and dignified, just like Roberta would have wanted, but Tom and Sarah turned it into a circus. They showed up with their lawyer. Who brings a lawyer to a funeral? And couldn't even wait until after the service to start causing problems. It turns out Roberta had updated her will 6 months ago. I had no idea about this. She never mentioned it to me. She left me her house and most of her savings, which total around $400,000. It's more money than any of us thought she had. Martin later explained that she had some investments that had done well over the years, plus a life insurance policy she'd been paying into since she was young. Tom and Sarah completely lost it when the will was read. They started screaming right there in the funeral home, with Roberta's body still present. Tom was yelling about how I must have manipulated her, how there was no way she would have left everything to me unless I had forced her. Sarah was crying dramatically about how her own mother had abandoned her, rich coming from someone who couldn't be bothered to visit her sick mother for 6 years. Their lawyer, this sleazy-looking guy in an ill-fitting suit, actually served me with papers at the funeral. They're contesting the will, claiming Roberta wasn't mentally competent when she made the changes. They're saying I isolated her from the family, conveniently forgetting how they were the ones who never visited and took advantage of her condition to enrich myself. Tom is telling everyone who will listen that I deliberately kept Roberta sick so she would depend on me. He's claiming I refused to take her to doctor's appointments. I have record of every single appointment. I was the one begging them for help with medical bills. Sarah is spreading rumors that I drugged Roberta to keep her confused. The nurse who helped with medications has already offered to testify that this is a lie. As the days go by, the weight of everything starts to press down harder on me. The legal battle looms over every moment, like a dark cloud that refuses to go away. I hadn't even had the chance to mourn Roberta properly, and now I'm forced to fight for her legacy, one I never wanted in the first place. It feels like everything she stood for, everything we had together, is being dragged through the mud. Tom and Sarah seem to get more desperate with every passing day. They're spreading lies to anyone who will listen, telling people I manipulated Roberta into leaving me everything. I don't even know where to begin to fight those kinds of accusations, especially when they're coming from people who should have been there for her, but never were. It's hard to wrap my mind around the fact that these people, my own family, could be doing this to me after everything I did for Roberta. They were too busy with their own lives to help her when she needed it most, but now that there's money involved, they're showing up with lawyers and demands. In the midst of all this, I find myself thinking about Roberta more and more. How much she meant to me, how she shaped me into the person I am today. She wasn't just a grandmother. She was my mother figure, my mentor, my closest friend. Her death has left a hole in my life that nothing can fill. She had always been there for me, and now it feels like I'm drowning in the fallout of her absence. The nights are the hardest. I find myself lying awake in Roberta's house, the house she left me, staring at the ceiling and listening to the silence. I haven't been able to bring myself to change anything yet. Her things are still where she left them. Her favorite chair is still by the window, the one where she sat every morning to drink her coffee and watch the birds outside. Her books are stacked neatly on the shelves, the same books she used to read aloud to me when I was a child. I still have the scent of her perfume in the air, faint but unmistakable. It's strange to feel so lost in a place that should feel like home. But without her, it's not home anymore. It's just a house, a symbol of everything that was once good and simple, now tainted by greed and betrayal. I wonder how she would feel, knowing what her children are doing now. She would be heartbroken, I know. Roberta was always about family, about doing what was right. But this isn't right. What they're doing to me, to her memory, is cruel. And yet, I can't escape it. The phone calls keep coming, each one a reminder of the chaos they're trying to create. I've started screening my calls, only answering the ones from Martin or a few close friends. I can't deal with Tom and Sarah's accusations anymore. They've sent more legal documents, motions to revoke the will, subpoenas for documents I don't even have, and threats of a full-blown court battle. I'm not a lawyer. I don't know how to handle this. All I know is that they won't stop, and the stress is slowly starting to take its toll. I've been trying to focus on the practical things, like getting the funeral arrangements finalized and dealing with Roberta's estate. But every time I sit down to work on it, I'm reminded of the pain, the sadness, and the fact that this is all being turned into something ugly. I'm starting to wonder if it's worth it. Part of me wants to give up, to just let them have the money and the house. But another part of me, one that Roberta instilled in me, refuses to back down. I won't let them destroy everything she worked for. Roberta trusted me. She left me this house, this legacy, and I will fight for it. Martin has been a great support. He's offered to represent me in court, saying that Roberta's will was ironclad and that Tom and Sarah have no case. He's been gathering evidence, pulling together medical records, and speaking with a doctor who examined Roberta in the weeks leading up to her death. He's even talking to the nurse who helped with Roberta's care to testify about the family's neglect. Martin is convinced that I'll win, but I can't shake the fear that this will drag on for months or even years. The idea of constantly having to defend myself, to constantly prove that I didn't do anything wrong, is exhausting. The worst part is how this is affecting my emotional well-being. I've been crying at night when no one is around, but I don't let anyone see it. I can't afford to break down in front of Tom, Sarah, or anyone else. I'm supposed to be strong, supposed to be the one who keeps it together. But the reality is that I'm terrified. I'm scared of what they'll do next, of how far they'll go to try and tear me down. And then, a few days ago, I got a call from the police. Apparently, Tom had reported me for elder abuse again. He's claiming that I was physically and emotionally abusing Roberta. He gave them the same story he's been telling everyone else, and they're investigating it. I can't believe it. It's like they've taken everything good about Roberta's life and twisted it into something unrecognizable. The police came by the house to ask me some questions, but they didn't seem too convinced. I showed them the records of all the doctor's visits, the care plans, the prescription logs, and the notes from Roberta's physical therapist. They seemed satisfied, but the investigation is still open, and that means I can't let my guard down. It's becoming a full-time job, fighting off these baseless accusations, dealing with the legal battles, and trying to hold on to the little bit of peace I have left. But through it all, I keep reminding myself of Roberta, of her strength, her kindness, and her wisdom. She was the person who taught me to never give up, to always stand up for what's right. And so I will fight.